Welcome to this journey to hidden Sicily. We are Giulia and Rizwan, Voice of Plenty, and today we are visiting Cava di Spica, a river valley that for 13 kilometers cuts the Hyblaean plateau between the cities of Modica and the city of ISPICA. Inside this canyon, the valley holds prehistoric necropolises, Christian catacombs, oratories, monastic hermitages, and settlements of various types which followed one another in this extraordinary place. Sicily is full of these ancient communities that used to build their villages inside the rocks. And here we will see a unique example of building, a 5 floors so-called hidden castle, entirely built and carefully hidden inside the mountain. Archaeologists call this specific civilization in South Sicily with the name of Culture of Castelluccio, from the name of a town in which they found the first village. But the use of the same typical sculptural and decorative elements that we can find also, for example, in Malta, like the spiral, the use of hypogeum, and entrance of some caves decorated with pillars built inside the rocks, clearly demonstrate that these buildings belong to the same culture that created colonies or settlements in different parts of Mediterranean areas, and not only. Furthermore, Malta was connected with Sicily in the past, as we can see from the maps. So the movements of people and animals was possible also by earth. Maria Gimbutas, an archaeologist specialized in excavation of megalithic sites, connects these sites of Malta and culture of Castelluccio with a matriarchal society, where the position of the women was harmonious and sacred, since women were recognized as capable of providing the sacred space for the creation of new life. A matriarchal society was not a society ruled by women, but a society in which the balance between the energy of masculine and feminine was still intact. So women were able to teach to men how to take care, how to connect with the invisible, and how to feel the cycles of life. Women can purify themselves with the moon. Women live longer than men, and women tears her flesh and gives her blood to create new life. In this kind of society, women used to live together, and there was not competition between them, but solidarity and mutual help. Sicily is full of these ancient traditions connected with the cults of the Great Mother, of the goddess Cybele, or divinities and female energies. And still today there are saints, women, or Holy Mary herself, as the patron saint of many cities and many localities in Sicily. We know that in many ancient civilizations used to exist isolated communities of women, like in Peru, in Machu Picchu, ancient Rome, Vestals, the priestess of Vestas, or Hestia, goddess. Or Greece, like the communities for education of women in Sapphic Thias, in Lesbo Island. Maybe these hidden places were dedicated and used by women only. That's why they were hidden deeply inside the valleys, and they were totally independent in the production of food and the use of water. They were built directly along rivers that used to pass once inside the canyon. In any case, one question is important. Why these people built such vast communities entirely dug into the rock of the mountain and therefore carefully hidden? What need drove these tribes and families to carry out such massive, demanding and complex excavations? Evidently, they had to hide someone or something precious: their religion, knowledge, culture. And finally, in these valleys, they found fresh running water and ideal places to hide in peace. Who were they hiding from, or why they were hiding, is still an open debate. The certain thing is that their mastery in working and moving stone was excellent, and was not possible only with simple instruments and primitive knowledge of engineering. Before voting the castle, we pass from the necropolis of Calicantone. The necropolis is excavated in the soft limestone rock on the right side of the quarry. We do not know a lot about this necropolis, since the tombs were found open. In total, about 80 tombs, caves, have been counted, although about 15 are best visible. 6 different types of caves have been identified. For example, simple oven tombs, as well as tombs with a vestibule, like a little room before the main circular room. Some tombs, anyway, are different, since they are decorated with pillars on the main entrance, directly escalated in the rock. On the plateau above, the remains of a village were identified, and maybe the castle was built by the same people at one point for specific purposes of defense, or rituals, or secret social community, as we find in many places, like Cappadocia in Turkey. Or the community of Qumran. Archaeologists explained that the foundations of a series of houses were found, built with wooden poles and plant cover, maybe like reeds that today can be found still everywhere near the rivers, and have been always used for building ceilings, fixed with clay and lime. Nothing is left of the houses except the holes inside the rocks where the posts were placed, and traces of the stones that reinforced the bases. The village was very big, since a building was found whose dimensions were over 12 meters long and 5 meters wide, with fragments of furnishings, pottery, glasses, bowls, tools, jewelry, and human skeletons were also found within its perimeter, like something suddenly happened to the village. We don't know why, but it seems that the village was suddenly abandoned. The excavation of the village have been covered again, while we can see the huge series of artificial caves facing the valley under the town. As you can see, the caves are small, with a small entrance. Some of them are multiples, and there is no trace of the closing stone, which must have been squared, large and very heavy. Some archaeologists suggest that caves were closed with temporary dry stone walls, which were then arranged over the time. But the fact that not even one closed cave was found here, where there are about 80, makes the fact not worthy. Only 3 big stones were found in another necropolis, the one of Castello, not so far from this place, which have engraved typical big spiral motifs, the same that can be found in Malta too. Anyway, it is not clear if these stone slabs were used as doors or altars or ornaments or something else. It is clear that this culture was obsessed with the idea of the spiral, clear symbol of life and regeneration and growing. Maybe because they were bringing some memories, maybe because they had a deep connection with the natural movement of life, maybe because they assisted to some ancient events that we forgot. For sure, they were observing deeply the movement of the stars, sun and moon, using astronomical calendars. For reaching the castle, we descend deeply into the valley, which today is still very wild and steep, and the vegetation is luxurious. We have to remember that in the past there was a flowing river just in the middle, while nowadays water has been removed to convey it through pipes and canals towards the plain, since modern cities were built outside the mountains, so that the river and water sound had disappeared permanently. Removed living water is always the beginning of the disappearance of an entire vital system connected to it. The castle was an impregnable position. We should imagine this structure as some other structures of monasteries of Greece, Turkey, Israel. Around Mediterranean Sea they were a common way of living. So in the past, this building, today called Castello Sicano, should have been quite similar to these places. And we don't know when and why it was destroyed, together with all the other hidden cities, villages, monasteries and free communities of Sicily. The official version of history proposes the famous date of 1693, in which the major catastrophic event or series of events hit and destroyed Sicily in historical times. just when Sicily was at the apogee of its power, flowering and full of abundance, and used to be the richest land at the strategic center of Mediterranean Sea. The external part of the castle has been totally destroyed, leaving us practically a cross-section of the interior. Numerous connecting stairways also collapsed. It is difficult to date this type of rock structure, also commonly called dieri, from the Arabic al-diyar, that means home. Some of the most famous dieri are also found in the nearby province of Syracuse, for example close to the Bauli Wood, a few kilometers from the town called Palazzolo Acreide, in which we can find a big sanctuary dedicated to the Great Mother Cybele, just near the river. The structure of Castello Sicano is divided into 5 floors. It is about 30 meters high, built on a steep overhanging rock. Considering the simple tools of the time proposed by official archaeology, it is impressive to note the size of the rooms, the presence of recesses for the door and window jambs, the niches, the tunnel that connected the various floors. How were they moving all this quantity of huge stones and rocks? The caves of the castle are distributed over 5 floors, and each level was connected to the other through a series of vertical trapdoors. The right side of the complex is today almost entirely collapsed, while the left side remains in good condition. A series of large windows and balconies overlook Cava di ISPICA, offering a splendid and evocative panorama, as well as guaranteeing light to the rooms. On the opposite side, there are instead a series of rocky chambers. In the lower level there are also various pits which probably served as a storage place for cereals, while a further trapdoor equipped with steps carved into the rock allowed to reach the bottom of the valley and a nearby source of fresh water. Another trapdoor leads to the upper floor, where there are further rooms. The Rupestrian complex was inhabited until the mid-20th century, so much that the signs of its reuse are visible in various points. The trapdoor was built for climbing quite fast up and down, with practical holes inside the two sides of the rock, in which feet can easily enter. People, of course, used to be very flexible and agile. Look how it is simple to use this ladder inside the rock. It is more safe than the modern one made with wood. Thanks to this kind of tunnels inside the rocks, inhabitants were able to move very fast, not only people up and down, but also loads and large objects, using rope systems. There are many strange things to observe inside these caves. First of all, the very high level in the extraction and processing of stone to create leveled floors and vertical walls, windows, corridors. The whole castle is created in a comfortable and strategic way for quick movements. How they were able to work the stone in this extreme position in which the mountain is totally vertical. Inside some rooms, there are kind of footsteps inside the rock. We are not sure actually if they are footsteps, of course. They are kind of shaped holes inside the floor. Usually holes were created for fixing poles for structures like beds, garderobes, but some of these ones are quite unusual in their shape. Some of them have a round shape, but many have a different oval shape, just like the shape of a foot. What do you think they are? There are many other structures in the same valley, now totally destroyed. They were built on the opposite part of the river, and you can easily see from the different colors of the rock all the places in which other buildings were built. So we can understand that in the past this valley was a huge, peaceful community, full of abundance, based on fresh living water, fruit trees, agriculture, breeding of goats, sheep and cattle, rituals, workcraft, and especially knowledge about rocks and stones. And this knowledge and traditions were global in all the Mediterranean and deep, and they were defended and handed down from generation to generation. We don't know if this place used to be a monastery or a place for women rituals, or a defense hidden place. It was probably used by the Byzantines, the Arabs, and many other passing visitors, until one day, suddenly, a great natural or artificial event swept away the housing structures present in CAVA ISPICA in a drastic and irremediable way. We know that until the 1970s, families of shepherds continued to live in the ruins of the castle, then gradually abandoning it. But the great knowledge of the past had already been lost before. And perhaps today, looking at history with different eyes, without conditioning, remaining silent in these valleys, we can recall the technologically advanced and harmonious civilizations that created, lived, and took care of these places.